What's up, people? So the concept I'm going to talk about in today's video is what I believe to be one of, if not the most overlooked concepts for mountain bikers pursuing progression on the bike. And when I say progression, I mean progression across the board, whether it's jumps, drops, climbing tech, descending tech, rock rolls, slabs, you name it. This concept will help you achieve your desired goals on all of those skills. The beauty in this concept, or the idea, or the things I'm going to show you in this video, is that they are easy to do anywhere and they are safe. You don't need a lot of time, and you don't even need to go to the trails to work on this stuff. The problem is, as easy as it is, it's easily overlooked. But we as adults, we get on these bikes that we learned how to pedal without training wheels when we were very young. So we assume we have a base knowledge, and we get on these bikes and we ride to these locations where we want to work on progression, whether it be the scary drops or the scary jump line or the scary rock slab or the scary rock rolls, you name it. What we don't realize is that, we get on our bikes, our tools, and we use these tools to get to those places to learn. We're never truly comfortable utilizing our tool, our bike. And it can be so deceiving. Why? Because you can pedal a bike, you can ride over rocks, you can go down a somewhat steep section of trail. You are fine, you are good, you are ready for the next level, you are ready for all that fun stuff that looks great on social media. The only problem is you are naive. What also is adding to the idea that you feel outside of your comfort zone when you are working on those progressive elements is that you're not 100% comfortable on the tool that you are using. And many riders who start off as adults, they don't realize that you can build a next level of comfort on your bike so that it feels more of an extension of your body. When your bike feels like an extension of your body, it's almost as if your brain controls the bike, right? You're not just riding the bike, you are in complete physical control of the bike. And that's a beautiful feeling, because when you take that feeling to the different, skills areas that you want to work on, suddenly you have a completely different perspective, a completely different feel, and a completely different mindset when you approach those scary features. But it's not too late for us adults, because we can still do that. We just need to change our mindset. So let's stop yipping and yapping and let's get to it right now. We are not talking about wheelies, we're not talking about bunny hops, and we're not talking about manuals in this video. We're gonna make it more simple than that. And as I do all the time, I'm always going to explain why I'm suggesting the things that I'm suggesting. I'm not just making this shit up. So the first skill we are going to work on today is the endo. Now, the endo is a very, very easy skill to work on. Not only that, the endo skill, that basic skill, is going to be the foundation for some other stuff that we move on to here in this video. So let's talk about the endo right now. Now we're just gonna focus on baby endos here. We don't need to go high, we don't need to hold it. Just a baby endo will teach us all we need to know. Let's move the camera back a wee bit. Okay, the beauty with the endo is it's going to teach you body mass control, right? A lot of people think that an endo is just slamming on the front brakes that stops your momentum of your bike, and your body's mass just keeps going forward, and you rock forward and then you rock backward. Well, there's no control in that. Well, we want control in our endo. What that's going to teach us is how we use our body mass forward control, and it teaches us brake modulation, and it teaches us being comfortable forward on the bike. So here I am, I'm high on the bike, I'm gonna squat down slightly and lunge up forward. Now, I didn't do any braking. It was just enough to lift my rear wheel off the ground. Here's what it looks like without brakes. I didn't bounce and pop so that my feet came off the pedals. It was real subtle, just enough to get my rear end off the ground. So next, you guessed it, next we have to engage our front brake. So it happens right after we lunge our body mass forward, right? So we wanna make sure we're going slow so that we don't just completely go OTB. So start slower, start small, okay? You don't want to go for height right now. You just want to gain control. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stand up and forward with our body mass and drive our body mass forward like we did when we learned how to get that rear wheel off the ground. But moments, almost instantly after we unweight, then we are going to brake with our front brake. Why do we brake after we unweight the rear wheel? Well, because that puts our body mass in control and not the brake. When our body mass initiates the movement and then the brake aids us, then we have total control. If we ride into it, slam on the brake, and then try to lift into it or stand into it or drive forward into it, then our brake has total control. We don't want that. So here we go. We're gonna drive our body mass up and forward, and we're gonna unweight the rear end and then brake. Nice smooth engagement. We kept some bend in our arms and we kept some bend in our knees. That's important because if we need to adjust our body mass so we don't topple forward or topple to the side, we can do that because we still have mobility in our limbs. Here's what it looks like with brakes. See how I keep my knees close to my frame and I keep my knees kind of closer to the head tube? That will ensure that my center of gravity, my main bit of body mass, is centered as much as possible on the front axle of the front wheel, the fork, the head tube, that general area that's going to give you the most stability and the most balance. It's going to give you the best feel for a balancing point and the best control should you need to adjust your balancing point. This is my braking finger. I'm going to go down and extend into my locked brake. So down, extend into my locked brake. Seems pretty safe and simple, right? Well, it is. That's the beauty in it. But it also is giving you control over your bike and comfort with your bike being off balance and being uncomfortable. So next thing we are going to do is we're going to do a baby little endo. Then we're going to rock back to our rear wheel, lift the front end and put the front end back down and ride away. It's all going to be controlled and stable because we are learning control over the bike and we are making that control second nature. Okay, we're just going to go endo, back, and off. So this is not a new trick. I don't know what it's called. I didn't get my glossary of mountain biking terms. They stopped sending me that in like 98 or 2000. But what you are learning as you do this is the transition of your body mass on your bike. You are gaining control and going from a more forward position on a bike to a more rearward position on the bike and staying in control and staying balanced. So some tips for success is that when you lift and brake with your front wheel, brake with your rear wheel at the same time. Your rear wheel is going to be airborne, so braking with it's not going to impact your momentum as you drive into your endo. But I find that braking both fingers at the same time just simplifies the timing in your brain. Two fingers work together, cuts out a whole step rather than front brake followed by the rear brake. So essentially what we are doing is we are going up into our endo, and as we bring the rear wheel down, we are going more rearward, okay? And it's very subtle. It can be very subtle just with the hips, just enough to get the front wheel off the ground. If you find that you are lunging backward and throwing yourself backward, you might find the balancing part of it is just a little bit more difficult. So again, it's this real subtle body shift. My front brakes barely work and it still works for me. So I'm gonna go down, extend into both brakes, hold both brakes, right back to my rear wheel. Yeah, the gnats are wild. So anyway, this is building a great foundation for understanding how your body mass controls your balance on the bike from the front to the back. You are in control. The shifting of your body mass controls the tool that you are riding, the bike that you are riding. If you like this, hit like. Consider hitting subscribe. It doesn't pat me on the back. It just tells the algorithm that, you know, this stuff is worth watching, and it'll, you know, offer it to other people. Once you've mastered just that baby endo and rocking it back to the rear wheel and maybe stalling it for a second or two and then bringing it back down and riding away, the next thing we're going to do is like a rear wheel trialsy hop. So we're going to endo, come down to our rear wheel, and we're just going to do one hop, bring the front end down, and ride away. Here we go. Endo and ride away. Essentially anybody can do it that can get their bike onto their rear wheel. All it is just kind of extending off of your rear wheel, but trying to stay further back on the bike so that you don't bring the front end down after you do your little hop. So you just extend almost straight upward. That'll keep your body mass more centralized over your rear axle, or at least rearward on your bike, so that you land on your rear wheel and then you bring the front end down. Now, as you progress and you find comfort and balance in these small little moves, you can easily expand them to be more extreme. You can do a higher endo, You can rock to your rear wheel and bounce with a higher front end on your rear wheel. You can bounce 1 time, you can bounce 3 times. You can see how long you can bounce. So here's the thing, so you master all that, you feel pretty comfortable, you feel confident, you might be a little bit sore in your lower back, your booty might be a little bit sore, etc. Those are all good things because that's going to benefit you when you actually then do get on your tool, your bike, and ride to those bigger skill areas. But what we're going to do now is, now that we have the endo down, mastered, and we've learned about our body mass forward and how it controls the endo, and we've rocked back to our rear wheel and we learned about how our body mass controls forward and backward on the bike, and we've hopped on our rear wheel, which is building, you know, these important little explosive muscles that we never knew we had, and is building core strength and just comfort on the bike, being uncomfortable. Now we're going to take all those and we're going to do an endo turn. What this is going to teach us is comfort in being uncomfortable sideways on the bike, right? This is going to take us to the next level of comfort on the bike. So again, this is not dangerous. The worst thing that might happen is you might put your foot down or step off the bike and whack yourself with your pedal. These sorts of things are always easier to practice on flat pedals. If you aren't comfortable getting your foot out of clipless pedals quickly, you want to make sure that you can get your feet out of clipless pedals quickly. So the endo turn can be something as simple as this. You just go 90 degrees and you're off and on your way. I find that it's easier for me to turn the direction that my dominant foot is forward. So my right foot is forward, so it's easier for me to bring the back end to the right. But that might not be for everybody. I don't know. I've only ever been me in life, so that's all I can say is that works for me. So you find what works best for you. But the real goal is you want to be comfortable doing it both directions, because if you want to have it be useful on the trail beyond just building comfort on your bike, this skill can be useful on the trail, but a trail is not only going to offer you circumstances where it's useful if you're turning left, right? So because you guys are now masters at controlling the bike in the endo and your body mass, this should be pretty easy for you. But there's some concepts that you want to understand. First things first, I don't use my feet all that much when I'm just going 90 degrees. What I do instead is I counter steer into it. So if I want my bike to start here and end up here in an endo turn, what I will do is I will ride into the point where I'm going to endo turn. I'll steer to the left a little bit, steer to the right, and then steer back to the left. That's counter steering into it. What that's doing is it's naturally leaning my bike over a little bit like this, and that puts me in a very stable and good position to then initiate my endo and drive the rear end around to the 90-degree point sideways. So here we go. Once again, I'm going to counter steer, go to the right, then come back to the left. And what that does is it tells my rear end the direction that it needs to go without muscling my legs and forcing the rear end by pushing my legs. So again, it's similar. If you're gonna jump up in the air and just spin, say I just am on the ground and I'm gonna jump up in the air and just spin to my left, and I wanna try to do a 360, just jumping on the ground. When I squat down, I'm actually gonna turn to the right. I'm gonna counter spin into it, and then boom, and what that does is it winds me up. So essentially we're just winding up the back end to help us get it around more naturally. So for this, we want to make sure that we're going real slow. The slower we go, the more control that we're going to have. We're masters now with the endo going slow. I'm going to counter steer a little bit, and I just went maybe 10 degrees. What I'm doing here is I'm just feeling it out. I'm just feeling it out, turning into it. There's maybe 20 degrees, or maybe that was even maybe 30 degrees. And we're just going to work up to bigger turns. So I want you to look at my shoulders and my counter steering, because that's what really helps me engage in the endo turn. So we're going to do an endo turn, and just like with an endo, we're going to extend into the brake. However, what we are going to do is we're going to wind up and turn, initiate a little turn when we extend into the brake, and what that's going to do is it's going to wind us up and help bring our back end around. To do that, we have to counter steer into it a little bit. So I'm going to bring my rider's right rear end around. I'm going to drift to the left a little bit so I can turn right. Turning right then is going to allow me to turn left to wind up my endo turn. So here we are. We're going to counter steer into it, steer, turn into it, and then extend. You want to keep, again, your knees and your shoulders and your chin up over your stem and closer to your head tube. And just like a regular endo, this helps you find balance and, again, a consistent rotating point. If your rear end is slamming down, you might be whipping into it too quickly. Your hips might be too far away from your stem, too rearward on the bike, or you might just be off balance. So when it comes to where to look, well, I don't look at the horizon. I generally look down at the ground close to where my front wheel is, as I would likely need to if I needed to endo turn on the trail. However, because I'm rotating, I want to ensure that my shoulders are rotating, my hips are rotating. So it does help to look into your rotation just a little bit. That helps guide you through it. You also find that as you start working on bigger rotations, say 180-degree rotations, where your front wheel actually needs to rotate in the dirt, that the more you look to your left, the more easily it'll be to rotate around. Whew, it's hot out. So we've worked on using our body mass to control our forward posture on the bike, our rearward posture on the bike, and now we know how our body mass kind of controls the front end and the rear end of the bike. We've used our body mass too to turn our bike and to manipulate our bike and to rotate our bike. But now what we need to do is practice and gain comfort in being uncomfortable when our body mass and our bike are crossed up, when they're going different directions, and how we adapt with our body mass to regain control and achieve the outcome that we want. Let's go do it. All we need is a small curb or a small flat rock. Let's roll. So as you start off, I would encourage you to find a low curb, but as you get better at it, you can make it way more challenging, way more difficult, just simply by going to slightly higher curbs. So let's get to what I'm talking about right now. So this curb right here, it might not look like it from your POV way up there or way out there on your computer, but this curb here, this section is about 4 inches tall, which is a good curb size to start on. Now street curbs are generally a little bigger. They're probably closer to the 6-inch mark, if not more, depending. So our goal is we're going to ride alongside the curb. Then what we want to do is we want to get our front wheel up on the curb, and we want to see how long we can keep our front wheel on the curb and then bring it down to the ground again. Now, I know that sounds easy, but what you are going to find is when your front wheel gets up on the curb, what do we know about bikes and things that are towed? So we're towing our rear wheel with us. So our rear wheel wants to follow the path of our front wheel. So if our front wheel is up on this curb, what it's going to do is it's eventually going to run into this curb, and we don't want that, right? That's exactly why they tell you to dismount your bike when you walk across railroad tracks, because that will crash you if you are not prepared for it. What you will find when you try this at home is it's going to be a little awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable because our bike's going to want to go this way, but we know we need to keep our body mass going this way. And we need to use our body mass to bring our bike back into line. This is a great way to build comfort in being uncomfortable when you get crossed up on your bike. So let's look at it. So here we go. I'm gonna ride super slow, and I can't just ride my front wheel up on the curb because it's gonna skid along it. So I actually need to lift it a little bit. I'm gonna lift my front wheel up, and I'm gonna bring it back down, super slow. So as you practice this, you're going to find that it's more challenging the more parallel with the curb that you initiate it from. And that's kind of what you want. You want it to be challenging. But let's say that it's too challenging. Well, you can come at a little bit more of an angle and lift up on and just turn off of it. What that'll do is it'll provide more of a turning sensation and less of a cross-up sensation. However, what we want to learn in this little demonstration, this little challenge, this little skill is we want to feel crossed up. We want to feel uncomfortable on our bike, and that's what our goal is. So the more we feel uncomfortable on our bike, the more we're mastering finding comfort and being uncomfortable. Here I go, I'm coming parallel to it. I'm going to bring the front wheel up and off. Now the prerequisite skills here are just a slight front wheel lift, and a pedal initiated front wheel lift is all that you need. On smaller curbs, it doesn't have to be high. Now on bigger curbs, you're going to need a little bit more of a controlled lift, but that's again a skill that you want to work on, and this is a great way to work on that skill as well. Here's the other thing. So I'm only me, I've only ever been me. I don't know what it's like to be you, but for me, my dominant foot is my right foot is forward. So when the curb is on my right, I feel most comfortable. If you want to really make things feel crazy, once you gain comfort on your most comfortable side, switch over to your less comfortable side, and I guarantee it'll be a whole new game. So again, most of these skills you may find that you never really need on the trail, but what you also don't know is that all of these skills build skills that you do need on the trail. So don't overlook this stuff. That's the beauty. When you're a kid, you go out and you work on these goofy little things that just make you feel uncomfortable. And we as adults, in most cases when we're learning a skill, we want to skip that step because it just feels unimportant. We want to go to the big payoffs. All it takes is just having fun on your bike, just doing silly stuff that can be done anywhere. This video just contained a few examples of that. There are tons and tons of others. All good. Thanks so much. Peace.